a lot of these copywriters, they'll like work with a client for 3 months, think, oh, I've got the name, I'm leaving. I think good businesses can see through that when you look at the CV. It's like, why'd you work with these guys for just 3 months? It tells me that they fired you.
It's like, oh, I made 7 figures for this client, this client, this client, this client. What it translates to is like, I've been fired from this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Trust is built in like small little moments over time, not in like big moments. Every time you're earlier on a deadline, that boosts a bit of a trust. Every time you're more proactive and you see a problem the client doesn't see, that builds a bit of trust. Every time you propose a solution to a problem you saw and then you've already fixed it for them before you like delegate the problem to the owner, that's extra trust. A lot of people on surface level think it's about words. It's not really about words. It's the people who are truly good at the craft of copywriting. They're very curious. They're very committed to truth. They want to know how the world works.
I'm curious on your perspective on how AI can be used by the big boys to make a crap ton more.
You got to learn AI, 100%. There's definitely going to be a gap between people who don't use AI or don't know how to use AI and people who do know how to use AI in the future. That gap will be pretty damn big. The way AI is growing, like you got to learn how to use it.
All right, Peter, thanks so much for joining me. I'm so happy that you're here. And yeah, it's really great to chat because, you know, you've done so much for a lot of personality brands and coaches and yeah, a lot of brands with faces, right? On YouTube, on social, on ads. And I learned a lot of what I've done as a copywriter from you directly. Like I learned a lot of that stuff and helped me with a lot of my clients. And most of my copywriting like mentees, they also write for personality brands as well. So like that really transferred into how I coach as well. So, you know, for anybody here that doesn't know who Peter is, I'd say he's one of the best copywriters in the game right now. Like he's incredibly good at writing copy that stands out from everybody else's copy and sounds fresh, even in very, very saturated niches. So really excited for our chat, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. That was a great intro. You never talked about me that way before.
yeah. Usually I'm just like, oh man, like more feedback because
you're just beating me at chess and trash talking.
That's right. Well, you usually win at the chess games these days, right? But you know, when we first started, actually, I think I tell this story to some of my mentees. I say, you know, when we got started, when I was working with one of the first brands that we were working on together, and I was learning from you more directly, you said to me, you know, well, you gave me a 10 email test project because I was getting into the position, right? And you were like, okay, so I'm giving you 10 emails to do. Now, I want to let you know up front that most of the emails are probably not going to get accepted. You're probably not going to make it. I still remember what happened. It was like, don't be upset. Like if most of the emails get rejected, because most of the time they get rejected. And, you know, you gave me some resources and Steven gave me some resources and I got all 10. You guys actually sent out all 10 emails. So
yeah.
I never asked you before, like, is that why you guys decided to like keep working with me back then? Because I was quite happy I got all 10 approved.
Yeah, you were good. Like you were better than we expected because usually like newer email copywriters are like, they don't really get Dan's or like the person we're working with, Dan, I'm gonna say his name, but like his voice very well in the beginning because usually when they're newer, they come in with like, I don't know how to call it. It's like copywriting speak. You know, it's like you could tell when they've been hand copying all the old sales letters and they're trying to translate it to just like the modern day emails and it doesn't work. Right? It's like you're talking about like one-legged golfers, but it's like, it doesn't really fit. So no, you stood out. Like, I think back then, like you were good and you knew it. But I think like your humility has grown a lot.
Yeah.
Since then. I think you've also gone a lot better. So, but yeah, I think that's why we kept you. Yeah. And then ultimately, like you took my position and everybody loved you more. So.
That's
it was
not
great.
true. but
Yeah.
what, you know, one of the things that definitely I definitely did learn back then was like a healthy perspective on ego and like you mentioned, like humility, because that was actually a big thing. That was one of the big challenges I had in the beginning, because for me, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere yet, and I wanted to try and like belong in the industry. And how that showed up was me acting like I'm bigger than I really was, because I thought that's kind of what gurus will often also like preach. You're gonna act this way, you're gonna be this way, and so I try to like be cool, you know. And I remember how it kind of rubbed a few people the wrong way in the team in the early days when I first got started, and I felt terrible about it. And then like I didn't want to give myself any excuses or justify or defend myself back then, because I was like, there's no point defending it. I'm just going to own it. But looking back, like, you know, now I think it's been 6 years. It was like me trying to, you know, try look like I know what I'm doing, try look like I'm good enough, and then try and, you know, like fake it till you make it. But I think a lot of copywriters actually make this mistake, and in some format. It doesn't always have to be like ego. It just kind of shows
Same.
up somewhere. Maybe they don't ask questions, or maybe they don't. They're not proactive with the work, or they make excuses, or they're late on deadlines. Like I know you've been a copy chief, and you lead lots of copy teams. Like besides what I was doing in the early days, like what other things have you also noticed that copywriters do that often leave a bad impression on clients, even though they don't even realize that they're doing that?
Yeah, well, dude, but first of all, it's like, thanks for sharing that with me. I didn't really actually know like that was what was going through your mind at the time. But like, dude, certainly that was it for me as well. Like I made that mistake as well. And I think I probably like wasted the first year of my copywriting career, like not really growing at all. Cause like my impression of the industry was when I started, I think it was like 2016, 2017. It was like I saw people and I'm like, everybody acts like they know what they're doing. Everybody feels like they have all the answers. It's like you suck. I have all the answers. Listen to me. So I thought like, okay, that's what I should like aspire to be like, right? Which was like completely opposite of how I learned like back in school, which I really actually enjoy learning. I actually like school, which is like I would ask questions and I would ask stupid questions because like I didn't really care if it made me look stupid. But like there was like a saying like, if you ask a question, you'll be stupid for 2 minutes, right? If you don't ask a question, you'll be stupid for life. So it's that changed when I got into the copywriting industry. I just stopped asking questions because I was so embarrassed of not knowing. And I think it was like a year of just trying to learn from courses, learning from YouTube videos, learning from not asking directly and just ingesting information instead of actually asking people, getting feedback, challenging the ideas. And I think that's the part of learning, right? I think that's a part of learning that a bunch of copywriters don't have, which is like actually challenging ideas. Because I think how as humans we learn is like, you don't just learn from ingesting as much as you can. You have to ingest ideas and have them compete with each other and see what's actually true, right? Which doesn't happen as much in our space because you just take everybody else's word as truth if they're a guru or an authority figure. But then when they have opposing points of view and you don't have critical thinking to figure out, okay, this person said this person said that, what's actually true? If you don't have that critical thinking, it's like you're kind of at the mercy of whatever the next person pitches you.
Yeah, that's nice to hear as well, because back then that's how I felt about the team. You know, the team culture was very much, at least on the front, in front of the clients. Maybe I don't know how it was behind the scenes all the time, but in front of the clients, it was always like we're you know, like, we're like really yeah like that. So I was like, okay, well I guess I must be like that too. Then you know, so I like started like try to be like that. But you know, after working with that team, I never really like to take myself too seriously. I feel like life is, you know, kind of, you know, life's life. You know, we're all humans, so let's just, you know, be students and be a good, you know, good students. And part of what I did as a coach in the early days is I didn't want to be a guru. You know, I didn't want to be someone that tries to be like, here's how, you know, I've done all this stuff. I'll say, look, here's something I did recently that worked for me. I want to share it with you because it was helpful. And that's been most of my frame for the last 5 years. And that's how I do think about stuff. But it's really worked really well for me. But
because that's the truth.
You know, yeah, I think it's very useful for copywriters. But I think that the frame for newer copywriters, when they work with bigger teams, they might feel this pressure to do what, you know, you just said, like they got to show that they're, you know, they know what they're talking about. And it's a very difficult thing to balance because on the sales call, if you come across like too much of a student, sometimes you lose frame as well. So it's like, I don't know, like, do you think it's you know, I like to say, well, you know, just be yourself and like, you know, if they don't like that, maybe it's a bad fit anyway. But at the same time, you do kind of have to play a few games with a lot of these businesses there's like a balance. Like you gotta kind of play into what they need a little bit. Say the stuff that, like for example, there's a couple copywriters, they want to be freelance, but there's a gig that requires full time. So that
Yeah.
copywriter's got to say like, hey, my goal is to work closely with just one or two clients long term. That's my goal. But behind the scenes, they do secretly want to have more clients, but they're not going to say that on the sales call. So that like in that moment, their choice is like, oh, I'm going to, I want to work with one client. And then it's like, well, they'll drop the freelancing goal for like a year until they get better. But if you tell that business on the sales call, I want to be a millionaire in the next 5 years, they might just say like, oh, you're not a culture fit because we're looking for an employee, right? So it's like trying to find that balance between what you can say that's like true to you, but also not say something that puts them off because their expectations different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like one of the things I've learned from like working with Jeremy, right? So he's like one of the top sales guys in the world. It's like you're right, it's a battle of frames, but you can always kind of reframe it to a way that kind of benefits both. Because they're like, oh, we want, like, I have these conversations too, right? They're like, oh, we want a full-time employee. And then in copywriting, we say you always sell the whole, you don't sell the drill, right? The employee is the drill here. What they want is they want to feel like they have the full attention and they have somebody that can proactively help them grow their business and have some like problem solved so they can like breathe like a sigh of relief. That's what they're after, right? They want somebody who can solve the problems for them so they don't have to think about it. They frame it as an employee because their perception of freelancers is like, okay, you're going to do what you can to tread water and get by, but you're not actually going to actively do anything to move the business forward. That's their perception of it. So when they say they don't want like freelancers, they say they don't want that because that's been their experience. So, but like, if you can, like, most clients, they don't actually like track your time, right? They're not going to track your time. They track your output. So if your output in less time is more than an employee, then
how do you frame that? Like, I mean, which copywriter? I know a couple of copywriters you've worked with, and I know a few of them have been freelance in the sense that they've had other clients, but they've still been really, really good once they got in the team. But like, how did they come across with that perspective and be like openly, hey, you're my number one priority. This is like, you're my main client. I might have one or two projects I do on the side just for my own like personal enjoyment, or like, how did they frame that to you? Do you remember?
I don't think any client, I don't think any copywriters frame that way to me. How I would do it is pretty much just similar thing to what you say. It's, hey, it's less about what I do in the conversation. In the conversation, I'll probably do exactly what you talk about, which is like, hey, you're my main client. My main focus is be more like a growth partner with you, help you grow the business together, and we grow together, right? I might have other side things, but like my focus is here, right? And after that, it becomes more about how you show up to the client as opposed to the actual frame, right? Like if like one small thing is like, are you getting ahead of the client in terms of like are you getting them like the deliverables before they ask for it, right? If they have to kind of come to you, like, hey, where's this thing standing, right? And then you give it to them, even if you finished it. If you're not proactive with it, that's like Brene Brown, she talks a lot about trust and shame and vulnerability and stuff, right? She talks about trust as like a jar, and you put bids in it. So trust is built in like small little moments over time, not in like big moments. So every time you're earlier on a deadline, that boosts a bit of a trust. Every time you're more proactive and you see a problem the client doesn't see, that builds a bit of trust. Every time you propose a solution to a problem you saw and then you've already fixed it for them before you like delegate the problem to the owner, like that's extra trust. So it's more about like what you do afterwards, right? Because it's like, you've probably had this experience where like, even if they're part-time clients, but in the first month or two, you're like proactively going forward, they're much less on you afterwards.
Yeah. 100%. I think this is very aligned with what I've experienced and what I've seen good copywriters experience, because there's a lot of luck and randomness in our industry. Like let's say you're in the right place at the right time, you apply to this gig, they happen to be looking. It is a combination of randomness. So, it looks lucky, and it could be, maybe there would have been luck somewhere else, but securing clients is not really about that, because that luck will happen somewhere, somehow. Within a year, you'll have a couple of gigs fall into your lap, the right timing, if you're consistent. But like you say, you gotta deliver once you get the client. That's what makes or breaks it, right? And I look back on my career, and for you guys watching this, I didn't say this already, but Peter was actually my first email copy coach and mentor as well. Like, I learned most of my email skills from Peter. I would say my style, my structuring, the way I do most of it, the core came from the way that you write emails. I learned a lot from you from that. But when I was working with that client, when I was working with Dan, with you guys, I just remember like deciding to myself, and I'm not going to let this go. I don't really care how much it takes of me, what it takes of me. I'm just going to make it happen. And I didn't know how I was going to do all of the work. I wasn't aware of a lot of the things that you guys were dropping names about certain copy experts, and the names of the main names in the industry. I didn't know any of their names. I didn't know any of the books. I was just like overwhelmed. I was like, I'm going to just make it work. I'm going to do what it takes. I'm going to work all day, all night, whatever it takes. And I think that's part of why I managed to get through that initial phase, because I know quite a few other copywriters were also applying for the gig back then, and they didn't make it to the point where I was actually closely in the team. That we had a couple of guys on the outside that we kind of like had a couple of projects with, but
yeah,
I was actually in the team, and so that was my philosophy, because I got in with you guys, and I worked there, and I just did it, whatever it took. And I took that to all my clients after we all went our separate ways. I did the same thing, for years. I would just push and push and push. And I think that's what people need to see. I think that's what is missing in the industry a lot of the time.
No, 100%. Like exactly what you said, the philosophy of like doing whatever it takes to make it work. And I think your effort came through because you stood out, right? And I think it might be a similar story with you. I'm not very good at getting cold outreach clients. Like, I haven't really done that much in my career. Most of my career has just been like, I did well here, and then I got referrals, and then like it's been referral after referral, because I do good work for the client. And then you're like become good friends with the media buyer or the director. Like, I'm good friends with Blake, right? You know Blake, and he's like, we've worked together on like 8 different clients now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because like we work so well together, but also because like when you deliver well, you create a good reputation for yourself within that company, and that kind of carries through to the next ones, right? Because I think even you, right? Like, I think Dan Martell was like one of your bigger clients, and then you met him through Dan Locke, right?
Actually, I didn't mean it through Dan.
Really?
But I
okay.
No, unrelated. But
unrelated. Okay, I didn't know that.
When I was chatting to Dan Martell, yeah, I didn't. It turned out, because I was chatting with Dan. Turned out, I don't even know if I can say this, but I think I can. It's that Dan Martell used to coach Dan, right?
Right.
That's what I didn't know about that until later. I was chatting to Dan.
SaaS, yeah, because you were trying to do closers.com.
That's right. So I was chatting with Dan Martell, and Dan Martell's like, oh, you work with Dan Locke, and you were part of his organic team and his email team and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I did that. And then Dan says, oh, that's cool. I used to coach Dan. And I was like, oh, no way. So it did help. It did help. I guess it's like indirectly a referral, right? Because it's like, the credibility kind of transferred over. I met him from a different guy that was actually in Taki's mastermind, actually Sean Ferris. Sean Ferris actually made the introduction.
Oh, yeah, Sean, yeah. Good guy.
Yeah, Sean actually made the introduction. So that was cool. Yeah, it was really, really thoughtful of him. But yeah, same. Most of my clients have come from referrals and strategic partners. Even my coaching clients, like majority of my coaching clients, they're not coming from ads or even YouTube videos. The most of the time, my clients come from word of mouth, right? Because I think the best marketing is customer success and client success, and so
much slower and much less instant gratifying, but like so much more longer term.
Yeah, it just keeps multiplying, right? Because you get one client, and then you get 3 from that one client, and then those 3 become like 9, and then those 9.
Yeah, so it's like a pyramid scheme, right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
a new pyramid, reverse wealth triangle,
referral pyramid.
Reverse wealth
there you
triangle. Go. Yeah. So that's I agree with you on that one. But
Yeah,
I love
actually,
to,
I'll just make one more point on that because like
yeah,
I
sure.
think that your philosophy to it, it's like it's so opposite to what's being promoted as like the way to get people into becoming copywriters, right? Because the philosophy is like, hey, get 3 clients paying you 3K a month who you gotta work just like 1 hour a day for, and you can be at the beach, right? And I think that gets people into the door, but that's not the philosophy that keeps them keeps them in the house, right? Because then you start, instead of doing what you did, which is like give everything to the client and do the best work and like basically just doing the best and most excellent work you possibly can, you start, or at least I've noticed, like copywriters will start like cruising or trying to slowly get by. And then they also almost like build this type of ego, which is like, oh yeah, I make the business money with my copy, so I don't have to do as much. It's it's like
Yeah.
even when you're really good, that's not a good mindset to kind of to have, right? So that's the last point I wanted to make on that.
Yeah. I think that's the coasting thing happens because what I've seen when I work with people one-on-one, they will hit their income goals with their 2 or 3 clients. They'll hit 10K. And then now there's no longer this direction because it was a purely financial goal. It's like, this was the mission. This is what everybody told them. Now they hit 10K and it's like, well, where do I focus now? Where's the next direction? And 25K sounds appealing. It sounds nice, but it's not as concrete because nobody else really, like the market doesn't say make 25K a month everywhere. There's not like, whereas most copywriting people that get into copywriting or like making money online generally has a 10K a month is like the big buzz, is the buzz. So the goal feels right. But then, yeah, once you hit the goal, it's like, well, what do I do next? So a lot of copywriters at 10K, they sit there and they think, yeah, I don't know what I should do next. And then what happens is they bias comfort because they don't really know what to do next. So they're like, well, I'll just sit with this. I'll just sit with what I've got and like get some time back because I'm not enjoying the pain I'm going through of working all day. And then they coast a little bit and then they kind of, yeah. And then, that's a whole challenge of its own, right?
Yeah, no, that's what happened to me for like I think
Oh, really?
about like a year during COVID. It was like, yeah, that was because I hit that income goal, right? And then I think exactly what you just went through. It's like, okay, I bias towards comfort, or I bias towards like travel, going out, doing adventures, doing all the things that I thought would make me happy, right? More of the novelty, more of but then just like, there's a whole other story, but it was like I got pretty damn depressed because had everything I thought I wanted like a few years ago. But then I was like sitting there, New Year's, I was in Portugal, and I was like, it was a New Year's celebration, and I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing, man? Like, what am I pushing for? And then I had a whole thing. I did like ayahuasca in Peru, and then that changed my whole life. And then uh,
So
that's
that's the secret.
another exactly, that's a secret. That's a secret.
That
I
sounds
got a
great.
ayahuasca retreat. If you guys want to join, it's all right.
It's like ayahuasca.com/Peterloo.
Exactly,
So that's
exactly.
right.
I
Yeah.
got a refer affiliate link.
Yeah. But on that point, right? Maybe it's not always comfort. Maybe it's like, okay, I finally earned my right to make this kind of money. Now I should do all these things that I've always wanted to do. Like now finally I have permission to do them.
Is that
For
what
some
happened for
people.
you?
I think for me, I always wanted to travel, right? I always wanted to go to Japan. Part of my motivation was I want to live in Japan. I want to learn Japanese. I couldn't do it as an English teacher. I didn't have a degree, so I couldn't get the visa. The government doesn't do visas for people without degrees there to teach English. So I was at this point where I was like, well, even if I make money online, I still can't really go there and stay there because it's not enough. And even if I did stay there, I'd have to leave very quickly, and I don't have the kind of money to just keep visiting Japan. Because that was one of the options. I was like, I'll just keep going and renew my like visitor's visa. But I didn't have. I mean, I was thinking my goal was to make $2,000 a month, and I was like travel backpacking and stuff. And back then, I think it was actually somewhat possible to make $2,000 a month in backpack, like in 2018, 2017.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
probably could get away with it in a few places, maybe a few Southeast Asia countries. You could probably do that pretty okay. But yeah. So when I started making decent money, I finally broke 10K. For me, my goal was actually 12K. But when I hit 12K, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna do it. But what actually ended up happening when I hit 12K was I didn't feel secure with the work I was doing, and I didn't feel like I could give myself permission to go travel when my clients were requiring more of me than I was able to give them. And I was like, well, if I go travel right now, I'm definitely not going to deliver for like Dan Martell, for example. I'm definitely not going to deliver for Dan. I'm definitely not going to be able to deliver for this other guy named Tom. And like, I got to be able to really lock in for the next year or two to get my skill up, because if I go travel now, they're not going to get the results. And so I put my goals on pause for a few years and just kept focusing on the skill, because that to me felt like, if I don't do that now, I'm not going to stay at 10K, because they're pretty happy, but businesses keep growing, right? That's the big thing with these guys. It's like when you close a client, once you've been in there for a while, like if you coast for too long, they outgrow you.
Yeah.
Because they have new needs, their business gets more complex, their ad counts go up, so that's sort of what happened for me. But then in 2023, I started to travel more. I started to reach that point where I was like, most of the time outgrowing my clients in terms of what I could do.
Do you think that was the right decision for you? Like say 3 years, and then you're enjoying the fruits and you're doing much better. So do you think like if you reversed it, where you like traveled a bit and then focus on it, you think that would have been the wrong decision for you?
I do think so, yeah. I think most things in life require at least 3-year cycles. I'm not sure if you've experienced cycles of that length as well, but I think most big things, like if you look at most of these guys we scale, most of the time it's proof of concept offer first year, refine the details of the product. Second year is like really ramp up on ads and optimize the process. And then like year 3 is like proper explosive growth. It usually comes on like waves of those 3, and maybe not 3 years, sometimes a bit faster, sometimes a bit longer. But I found like for my own career as well, there's like these cycles of 3 years where it's like you get the first year is the clarity, where you get an idea of which direction you're moving in. Year 2 is optimizing, getting stronger at that direction. And year 3 is where all the compounding and all the patience kind of like turns around. Same thing with the dojo. Like dojo took about 3.5 years. It's the same sort of cycle. So I think if I had gone traveling, it's not that I wouldn't be doing well. I just think I would probably be in the same space, because you kind of break that momentum and compounding effect too soon before you really see the growth. And I also think that most business, like a lot of these copywriters, they'll like work with a client for 3 months, think, oh, I've got the name, I'm leaving. I think good businesses can see through that when you look at the CV. It's like, why'd you work with these guys for just 3 months? That tells me that they fired you. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen that as well.
There was like the meme.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I made 7 figures for this client, this client, this client, this client. It's like 20 different clients, and they've been in the game for like a year. You're like,
oh no.
And like what it translates to is like, I've been fired from this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And it's just like, yeah. It's, I don't know. Like if you write one email sequence for a client and they make a few $100K from it, that doesn't like, it's not as big of a flex as like what the clients actually want. So,
well, I mean, part of the email sequences, I mean, you're still writing the copy. Sure, there's still value, but if you write the funnel, if you write the funnel, right, and then I take your funnel, which we did this quite a few times with our client, right? You'd write the funnel, or Stephen wrote the funnel, and I'd take the funnel copy, the marketing message, the main angles, the main beliefs and hooks, and I would actually just kind of take that and flesh out each of those ideas in an individual email. Right. So if I say that sequence, I think a couple of those sequences made over $500,000, but it's definitely more of a team effort, because those angles and hooks, I didn't come up with those, like, and some of those you guys didn't come up with either. A lot of those Dan pitched. It's like that's what Dan wanted to say. Right. So it's like, and then you've also got the sales team that did like a significant amount of the work. And then there's also the ad spend, and Blake's putting a lot of his time into that. So I think a lot of copywriters that just use revenue numbers, it's not actually I don't know, it doesn't impress that much, to be honest. It's more of like which client you worked with. If you say I worked with Frank Kern, and then you say I've generated him only 2 million, like I've generated Frank Kern $2 million, I can't be like, well, you worked on like what, like that's quite a small amount for someone like Frank as well, right? And like, did you really do that? It's like most of it's already his
Yeah,
business, you know. You
because
just
he
kind of
already
like,
has a brand. He already has
yeah,
his
yeah,
like his goodwill built up from like decades of being in the field and stuff, right? Yeah, and it's like our company, we were just recently won like the ClickFunnels like $100 million award, right?
let's
But I'm
go,
like,
nice.
but I'm not gonna say, oh, my copy generated $100 million for the company. It's like exactly what you said: the sales team, the sales processes, the operations, the client fulfillment, right? The ad spend, the actual like Jeremy being the face of the brand and building it. It's like such a team effort
Hmm.
that like the hubris to say like I generated this amount. It's like, yeah, most business owners will not be like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You never worked with a team before. That's what it'll
Hmm.
feel like. So
So I, so I can't make the title of this YouTube video like he made his clients $100 million. This is a secret.
call me the $100 million copywriter. There you go.
100 million,
Right?
$100 million copywriter speaks out on what
Yeah.
actually works to get sales.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Single-handedly. Yeah.
Yeah. Single handed.
Yeah.
This one
Well,
secret will make you a
actually,
hundred million
my
dollars.
copy, like we got clients because our clients are salespeople, right? So they sold probably billions of dollars because they joined our
Hmm.
program. So I'm going to take credit for
Oh.
their sales too, right? My copy has
Yeah.
actually generated over 9 billion in sales made around America. So I'll take credit for that too.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I like that. And then yeah, and then like any then whoever coached you on copy, I'm curious, like some of the people, maybe we should talk about that, but all the people that coached you could also take all of that as well. Coach the
Exactly.
copywriter who
Exactly.
generated $9 billion, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything. And then my grandma would be the grandmother of the $9 billion, like just
That's right.
like,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Like the originator. Tell
yeah.
me a bit about
That
like who you learn a lot from. I think we both learned from Matt Fury. Matt Fury is, I think, one of the people I know, but
Yeah, yeah,
who
yeah. That
else
was
did
the
you learn a lot
email.
of copy from?
I think in the beginning it was definitely Steven, like Steven Zhao. Right. Yeah. He's more behind the scenes, but like he was the guy who like pretty much like forged me in the beginning, right? In terms of emails, he gave a lot of feedback. Uh, even in the beginning, actually, I learned a lot from Ed Ray, right? Like he was helping me. Like I wasn't really getting Dan's voice correct, or I wasn't sure how to like position him on social. And he's like, "Oh, just do this, this, this," and then I'm like, "Oh, it clicked for me." And then I think from that foundation I built up. In terms of other things, I think when I started, I did the copy hour program, which is basically you hand copy for an hour every day for 90 days, right? And they just send you what to do through email. It was like a course that was Derek Johansson. He's not as big as a copy guru, but lately I think past few years, but Stefan Georgi, he was really good. I love his stuff, especially like how he breaks down like the unique mechanism of the problem versus unique mechanism of the solution. Like that's helped a lot in my positioning. And we're like just figuring out what are the points you need to hit in copy for a sale to be made, right? Um, Ian Stanley, that was for email copy back then. That was
Hmm,
really good.
hmm.
And yeah, and I would say a bunch of more of the psychology stuff, the perception stuff, uh, and positioning I learned from Dan. Like I think I learned third hand, like through second hand, like how you can manage perception so that it's like knowing which slice of life to show for people to kind of envision like the whole thing. So, you know, like you show bits and pieces of it and you leave it, like you show the pieces you want to and you deliberately leave the other parts up to like imagination, and you choose which parts you leave up to imagination, right? It's
Visually, right?
like visually, like Ty Lopez, right? He does this really well. Like he'll be in a mansion and then he'll be in a tank top, right? What does that subconsciously communicate? It's like, oh, it's no big deal. He's right. It's no big deal, but he does it deliberately, right? And then he's walking around, and it's like just people walking around in his like in his house, and he's like acting like it's no big deal. It's like, oh, okay, he has like a bunch of people working at his actual residence. But like he's not overtly saying, oh, these are all my employees, I'm so rich. Like he's allowing you to like allowing your mind to like to make up its own conclusions.
Interesting. Yeah, so if you don't get that right, then you end up like a couple of the gurus that we've seen who just look terrible, and all they do is brag about stuff, and they just look like they look scammy. Whereas the guys that do this the right way, you know, that everybody doesn't see them as a scammy guru, even though they probably have the same amount of money, probably more money, you know. So it's interesting, yeah. Yeah, I always noticed that Dan was very good at that. You know, Dan's been very good at perception and belief shifting, and he does a lot of pre-selling, like a lot of pre-selling, you know. Very, very good.
Do you do that? I feel like you're also very like meticulous and very aware of perception, just because like, we work from like the same background and like.
Well, you know, the most of the people that you mentioned that you learn from there is the same list as me. You know, I think you and Steven were the two people that gave me the core foundation of my skill set. You know, I didn't read any copywriting books. Like I got one course from AWAI in 2017, which which gave me a foundation in some general writing sense. But most of my skill came from you and Steven. I'd say like I refined it with you guys, you know, or at least even before I actually was working with you guys, I was studying that copy, and that copy was written by you guys. So I like internalized that style. But I think for me, it's definitely very, very intentional what I put out there. But I think the difference is that I don't like with my posts, right, and my videos and stuff. Like I created the lifestyle that I wanted to live, and then showed the parts that I care about. Versus, I think a lot of gurus, what they'll do is they'll actually decide that this is the perception they want to create, and it's not really true to them, but they'll do it for the sake of the.
Like, will get them the sale.
Yeah, right. So like for me, for example, I don't care about cars at all. I don't really like cars. I mean, I enjoy driving. Maybe I'll get a nice car at some point because somebody will tell me I should race it. I mean, I live in South Africa, so it's pretty nice. The roads are pretty good in this area. I don't really care about cars. So if I were to try and people will respect you more if you have certain physical things, like especially men, right? Men do respect certain material things, and it gives you some sort of status in their eyes, regardless of how humble or how honorable they are, whatever. Like it's just a programming thing, right? So it's like there are definitely status symbols. But, you know, for me, I think that I love traveling, and I think traveling communicates that as well. So I found like the middle ground where it's like, oh, you know, I enjoy traveling, and that represents freedom to me. And I'm intentionally going to show the fact that I enjoy traveling to my market and my audience, because I know that they really want that too. But also that is true to me. But also it actually does carry some of the same weight as somebody that has a very fancy car, because some people want that wealth, other people want the travel. And so I think that everybody can do it to some extent. Like you choose your hobbies and you choose the things you show. Like I, for example, love chess. So I've got chess, right?
Yeah, nice chessboard.
I like chess a lot. And so it's really true to me, but I also know that chess represents strategic thinking, and it represents something that people respect in business. So I select that hobby to show. On the other hand, Lego, I actually love Lego. Like I have a lot of Lego actually, but I don't think I've ever posted about it. I mean, maybe one post about it, because it's not like I don't want to share it. It's just that I don't really feel like it helps the messaging, you know? So yeah, I don't know if that answered, if that was exactly the question.
Lego is a foundational building blocks of business, just like how you build a business. like you got to.
Yeah, maybe I'll have a video where there's like some Lego and I just won't address it. Just leave it there. You know?
I got a hot take about chess and business. I'm not sure if you agree with it or not. Okay, because you know, there's a bunch of people who are like chess became like a fad for a little bit, and everybody was like, oh, okay, they started posting like chess pictures and they comparing with business. I think
I sold one of those. Yeah.
If I think my opinion is that if you can't defend against a scholar's mate, you're not allowed to make any chess business analogies.
Well, I haven't lost to a scholar's mate from you, so should be okay.
Yeah, you haven't lost. Yeah, no. I'm not talking about you.
But I know,
like,
yeah, but I know what you're saying.
I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
100%. Yeah.
they play chess for like a week and they're like, oh, chess is all about strategy. And I'm like, you know how to defend against loose pieces. It's like, anyways, all
Have
right.
you seen those photos
I was
where
a bit
they, no,
pompous.
have you, no, that's funny, man. Have you seen those photos where they got like the guy, he's like looking at the board as if he's thinking and there's like no piece has been moved yet?
Oh yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, there's a lot of these guys that like, I don't know. I mean, I've played chess since the age of 3, so it's not to say that I'm like particularly. I mean, I'm good. I'd say I'm definitely good at the game, and I got a really high ranking. You're really good too. I think we're pretty close in skill level. Um, maybe you're a little bit better
No,
sometimes.
I think you're
Depends.
much better than me.
Maybe in
What are you
person
now?
with
Because you have like chess coach. You're like 1800 something now?
1900 around
1900?
there.
Damn, like getting to
Yeah,
close to
yeah.
2000s. Crazy.
I'm close. Yeah, I'm close.
Yeah, I'm still 1700s. So
Yeah, but I mean, if I'm playing speed chess, I probably would be like 1600. I'm not particularly good at speed chess, but like a long, thoughtful game, maybe like an hour game, is where I'm strongest. I'm strongest at like long timelines, long time control. But yes, that'll be cool. Yeah, I'd like
yeah.
that. Yeah. So I think that's what you were asking, right? Like, what do I intentionally put out in my
Yeah,
visuals
because like
or?
you get to choose what you share with the world, right? Obviously, there are things you only share with your close circle, but then there's also parts where you're trying to be vulnerable and like real with the audience. So I'm always curious about how you balance that, right? Because like people say like to be genuine and to be vulnerable, to be authentic, but like I feel like some things you have to like kind of reserve for people who are actually close to you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So
Maybe I didn't say this part of the either. I didn't explain this, but one of my philosophies that I've developed over the last few years is more of a discovery process and the creation process. So like let's take mechanisms for example. I think like the best mechanisms I've ever seen are the ones that already existed that the market found and used to build their argument versus just creating one for the sake of like the tactical like, oh, I invented this thing that helps you to get this result. When it's like already there,
do
when
you have an
it's
example?
already, yeah. So let's say for example, Airbnb BizUp, right? So like Airbnb BizUp, the actual business, you don't actually have to own any real estate.
Yeah.
So you're not really creating that mechanism. That's just part of the business model itself. Same with like
Mm,
Amazon Kindle. It's like the reason that the Amazon without physical products works is because it exists as a business model. But when you have something that's not particularly different, let's say, I don't know, at this point, let's say like Amazon wholesale, you have to, a lot of the copywriters, they'll like try come up with a mechanism. They'll like try invent a mechanism
like to make
versus
Amazon
like,
wholesale to look sound good or like
yeah,
you
yeah.
mean okay.
Yeah, they'll like create it. And when I say create it, I'm not talking about like the actual writing part, the writing part. I'm talking about like invent a mechanism that makes it sound good. Versus, I think good copywriters, when they go into Amazon wholesale, they'll dig into it to the point where they discover whatever that USP is, whatever that unique point is. It's already there, right? Like with every business, there's like most good businesses, there's already deep down something there, and we're just finding what that is. Because if you just create it, you just invent it for the sake of tactics, it might work a little bit, but people usually see through it, and it's not strong enough. There's no foundation behind it. And so I've just noticed that from a lot of different offers and looking at mechanisms. Like I think the perfect example of this being done incorrectly is with business coaches, not the gurus, the B2B guys. There's a strategy, let's say on Instagram that's currently working. They'll invent a mechanism for it. And then next month they got to invent another mechanism. And then the next month they got to invent another mechanism. It's like, oh, the reason you're not getting sales is because you're not doing this like reverse viral strategy that works on Instagram. It's very tactical. It's not like fundamental to like growth. Whereas people like, uh, maybe let's say like Alex Chaffin, like his models of how business owners should think about the levels that they're at is
Hmm.
it's more
Hmm.
of a discovery of what's already out there with the data than inventing it from nothing. So to bring it to what you asked me, is just that I yeah, I just don't want to create something for the sake of creating something. It's like, well, let me just discover the things about me that definitely I find reflect who I am, and just bring those out, amplify them. So instead of
That's
coming
so
from
interesting. Yeah. So you're treating yourself like a business, and you're going into what's actually happening in your life, and like what you're like, it's just honoring truth of like what's actually
yeah, I find
happening,
it's like
right?
it's a good way to do it, because then you like, because a lot of these guys will say, oh, you should do vulnerability posts, and then you'll have a whole bunch of people inventing vulnerability for the sake of the vulnerability.
That's actually so
Like
true. There's like so much
something
fake
that's not that
vulnerability.
traumatic, it's not that bad. They'll like make it sound really, really dramatic because they have to create the vulnerability post.
That's so funny. That's so true.
So, I mean, we do that
I
with
know
our clients
exactly what you're
sometimes,
talking about.
right?
I know exactly
Yeah.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I just think that's how you find the balance. Maybe that's how I found it. It's like, I'm just gonna look within, and find the things I think I'm proud of, and I know my market likes and finds affinity with, and then just amplify those things, and just be intentional about them. But yeah. So yeah, that's fun. I love all this stuff. This is more, to me, this is like real copywriting. What we're talking about is like, because a lot of copywriters, you were talking about copy speak at the very beginning of our interview. And it's like that's where the craft ends for a lot of these newer writers, or even some established writers. They're like very copy speak. They rely on AI. How do you get past that stuff? How do you get to the point where you're beyond that stuff? What even? Yeah, yeah.
I think you and I would understand it's like when people say copywriting, a lot of people on surface level think it's about words. It's not really about words, right? It's the people who are truly good at the craft of copywriting, they're very curious. They're very committed to truth, right? They're truth seekers, and they want to know how the world works. They want to know how people work. That's like the core driving foundation of it, right? But other people see copywriting as like, okay, what's the sequence of words that I have to write to make this person do something that I want to do, that I want them to do, right? So it's a lot of people write copy is like, okay, how do I write it so it's the most persuasive and I can get the sale? I think like true copywriters, they're like, how can I write this so the person on the other side feels understood, heard, and hopeful? It's almost between like writing for somebody versus like writing to them. So I think that's part of it. It's like understanding copywriting it's not just writing. It's what you were talking about. It's a discovery process, an extraction process of like what's actually out there in the world.
Hmm.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I'm thinking about how that fits into some of the perspectives I've had. I think it's very similar. Yeah. I think writing is just an expression of, or an extension of what's already here. And it's just the ideas, but put on the page. Whereas a lot of people start with the page, but there's no idea. It's like, Stephen gave me a good example. Stephen said to me, because I wrote some copy that was dry or something, it didn't have like that much pain in it. So he's like, yeah. So he like gave me this analogy, and he's like, doesn't it really suck when you open the dishwasher a little bit early and the plates are like still wet? And it's like, you're going to take those plates out and they're still a little bit wet. And he kind of just kept repeating it. And I was like, waiting for the point. And he's like, yeah. So does that sound like something people care about that much, or like, not really? Like, it's not really that. It's like whatever. The dishes are a little bit wet. That's not something people really resonate with, then care about. So that's kind of how the copy feels right now. It feels like you're trying to dig the knife in, but you're like, doesn't it suck when your dishwasher's like not finished? So that's not. It doesn't matter how perfect my words are. The point of the dishwasher having wet dishes is just weak. It's just a weak idea, So you get to the point where you start to try and think of the stuff that they really care about. One of my clients, for example, he was going to a 9 to 5, before he became a coach, and before he made money with his main business, and then he transitioned into being an offer owner as well. And a lot of the copy we had previously would say stuff like, oh, you're sucky 9 to 5, you're miserable 9 to 5. But it just doesn't feel that. I mean, everybody heard that. So one of the things I found about his story was he commuted a lot to work. So I was like, you pay to go to your 9 to 5. That was like my hook.
Ooh.
It was like, something like that, right? And it's like, it doesn't really matter how I deliver that. Like if the copy, even if the words are 7 out of 10, that hook is painful versus like your dishes are kind of wet. It's like, doesn't it suck that you pay to go to your 9 to 5 job? Maybe not that kind of lead, but like something to that effect.
No,
right?
no, no.
Like,
but it hits the point of the actual pain.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's actually exists out there, as opposed to trying to fabricate a pain out of something where there isn't pain.
Yeah,
that's
right?
exactly what you said.
Yeah, and then people will say that there's been a lot of copy these days. I'm curious to hear your perspective on this as well, about like how emails have become very boring for most of the industry versus the stuff I used to read. I feel like a lot of it's very like the same. But people say like, oh, doesn't inflation suck? Isn't it so stressful? Isn't it so bad that things get more and more expensive? And and so I mean, obviously everybody cares about inflation, but when you approach it that way, it's kind of weak. So what I did in that email, I was like, it sucks enough that you have to go to 9 to 5, but nothing sucks more than having to pay to go to your 9 to 5 with by paying gas. And what sucks even more is that the gas keeps getting more expensive. Like that sucks a lot. The gas gets more expensive every single year. So like and that was my life.
Your paycheck doesn't even grow.
Yeah, right. So like that was my life. I used to like for years I kept spending more and more money just to get to work, to go work for somebody else's dreams. And that didn't suck enough. The other thing that sucked was I literally had to roll up a towel and put it behind my seat because my back hurt from sitting in traffic for 2 hours. So I literally had a towel to like get my back in shape. And then I had to go to therapy and massage therapy and stuff. And it was so painful that that was that was when I started Googling how to make money online or something like that. It's a story or something like that. Yeah.
That's cool.
But I think it's stronger, because it's the idea, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's the idea, it's dimensionalizing it, and it's much more specific to the actual thing, right? Because like people don't live out generalities. People live out actual stories that's personalized to them. And even if somebody who's not commuting to work, who doesn't have back problems, like they still relate with it because it's a human story.
Yeah, they'll probably think of some other thing in their life that you could probably add that line somewhere in there, like, and I'm sure that that's not the only thing that you don't like that you have to pay for. It keeps getting more expensive or something like that, and then they like start thinking about it. What's your perspective on most copy these days? Obviously, you're a humble guy, and you don't trash talk anybody. I don't,
it's all shit out there.
but what like genuinely, like, what is your main impression of like a lot of the copy that I think, I'll tell you, I think real quick, I think it's a lot weaker than what I saw in 2020. So I'm really curious what you've noticed.
Depends on which specifically. Some copy I've seen is pretty damn strong. Some copy, but like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of like the people who are creative or like who are like authority figures, they stop writing the copy and they start delegating it to junior copywriters. So I wonder if that's part of it. Because like a bunch of copy seems like, I feel like people who are writing really good copy became more like business owners and became less involved in the actual writing of it. I think like way back then it was like Ty Lopez had some actually really good emails, right? Like he was writing some really good ones. I remember reading them and be like, holy shit. Then now it's every day. It's just like, last chance. We're doing this call. It's only the last 5 spots taken. It's just like every other day. It's just like scarcity copy and urgency copy that's like fake and false, and no one cares anymore. But I don't know. What are you seeing that makes you feel like the copy is like a bit weaker? Like, are you talking about like a funnel copy, ad copy, specifically email stuff, or like?
I think that most of the offers I'm seeing just seem to have the same thing. I don't know. Maybe that's just because I've seen so much copy by indirectly through coaching so many writers that maybe it just feels that way. But I don't think so, because I just feel like whenever I see these emails nowadays, I can finish them. Like I read the first sentence and I kind of know what's coming. They'll say this one sentence. I'm like, okay, you're going to say this next. You're going to say this next. And maybe the market doesn't feel
Or
that it's
maybe
boring
you're so
because
good. Maybe
no,
because
I don't
this
think it's
person,
that though.
no?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like if I was a prospect and I've been in the biz op space for 2 years, I would probably also feel I know what they're going with. I'll think of an example. It's like,
It's like PAS emails.
yeah, but like if you take a YouTube ad where it's like, um, now in the next 5 minutes, I want to share with you how I quit my job and work from anywhere in the world to make $5,000 to $10,000. And I used to just be a regular person like you. Like it's the same that same hook, you know. There's definitely outliers. Like I mean, your clients, you always get on board with really good offers that have a really cool, unique perspective, and you add a lot to it as well, you know, from your own writing and the team. But I think a lot of, at least in BizUp, a lot of the gurus that they kind of just sound all the same now. They all just have the same sort of messaging. Maybe it's because Amazon FBA is not as much of a thrill as it used to be. That maybe that offer's been it's harder to sell today than it was in 2020. Maybe other offers are the same. I don't know. Maybe it's also just because of my exposure to BizUp. I've just seen all the angles. But I remember when I was writing copy in 2020, 2021, I could go into my email list and I could go into my swipe and I'd see some really cool stuff that felt very fresh. I don't see as much fresh stuff to get inspiration from anymore. I really don't. I feel like I have to go back to old copy to get inspiration. I don't feel like I get it from modern email copy.
Now I'm thinking about it. I think like I agree because I remember back in like, when we were like all a team, right? We would send swipe files to each other, be like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
this one's cool. Look at the freaking angle on this one. Look at this one, and we were sending it to each other. It's cool. I haven't seen much of that like in the past year or two, right? Like maybe here and there, yeah. But I would say I agree with it. Yeah, ideas are like I also wonder if it's like people are moving more away from direct response and more into like personal branding, just because like that seems to be like the next thing, right? Like Alex Hormozy is all about like personal branding, right? He's like less focused on like direct response, right? And like getting ads more profitable. It's a lot of these people are more about just like building the brand, and they feel like that's more of an asset than the actual marketing. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a different take on it. That they see that as their actual business that they're building, you know, because that makes sense. I've often found that I just thought the data tells them that their personal brand is what's making them the sales. And because most of the time the copy, look, they're not that many great writers. It's hard. And even the great writers, you know how much time it takes to write that good copy. You know, so like you could take a really great writer, let's say Ed, right? Like Ed's a really, really good writer. You take Ed and you say, hey man, I have an offer for you. If he spends 2 weeks on it, he'll probably write like some insanely good copy that beats a control. If you put Ed in an agency, the quality of his copy around the board will probably go down a 1 point or 2 points, right? Just because of how much stuff he has to output. So like even good copywriters, when they close too many clients, then the quality goes down. You know, at least I've experienced this because like I wouldn't say I'm at that level yet. Like I think that I haven't written as much as I'd like to have to get to the level where I feel like, and I'm not as fresh either because I've been coaching a little bit more than writing copy over the last year. But if I'm writing copy for a client and it's just my only client, the ideas are much fresher than when I'm writing for 4 clients and just getting it out there. I feel like it does get dragged down just a little bit, right?
It does, because then like
it does,
because then you're going through then you're just going through templates in your mind that are easy to access.
Right. Yeah, so then I feel like that's what's happened. A lot of these guys, they've just got lots of clients, and then the quality goes down. Even good copywriters, they'll hire the juniors, like you said, and then the quality goes down. So even the best, and then the best of the best writers, sometimes they don't even write copy for them, like businesses anymore. They just do their own offer, right? So like you don't have the best in the industry on in the game. The very good ones have delegated and try to get leverage so they can increase their income. The semi-decent ones, those ones are pretty good, but they're still not coming up with controls. And then you have the very average writers, and then the average writers are like, they're just starting their career a lot of the time. I wouldn't say that. I think most of these guys, most copywriters don't really realize how young they are in an industry, because everybody's in this industry thinks like, oh, you've been in the game 1 year, like if you look at most industries, it take you 10 years to become like get anywhere in the medical industry. But yet as a copywriter, it's like, oh, I've been in the game 2 years and I should be so good by now. It's like, bro, it's like, it's fine. It take you, if I've been in the game, what, like 7, 8 years now? And it's like, I still feel like I'm relatively new to the industry compared to many people.
Same,
And I'd
bro.
like to get good. I would want to see myself in the industry for 15 years before I really expect to like have a couple of cycles behind my belt and a couple of trends, and I know the game. But to what I was saying, it's just a personal brand is because of all this average copy. I think business owners have got smart and they've said like, okay, well, we don't want to be so dependent on the copy being the make or break of our entire business. So let's lean into our personal brand. Let's lean into that and let the brand do more of the selling, right? And so then you don't have the need, like most of these offers don't actually depend on the copy so much. You can have the exact same funnel copy on a 2 million person YouTube channel or 2 million person Instagram channel, 2 different accounts, almost the exact same page, landing page, and it'll still convert because the brand is different. So it feels like a different page. Different person reads the same script, feels different. I think that's interesting. That I didn't see that as much back in 2020.
No,
So I think
not.
that's part of it. Maybe why the copy's bland is because it's like they're not as dependent on it anymore.
Yeah, they're not, because like you go to any business owner, and you give them 2 options. Like, hey, do you want a really good brand or do you want a really good copy? Like even copywriters will be like, no, I want an actual good brand as opposed to
Right.
copy
Yeah.
as the copy. Like copy is not. It's like copy is a skill. It's a means to an end. It's not like it's not an. I don't think copy is an actual business like function, right? It's considered under marketing, right? And marketing's purpose is to get new eyeballs, new leads into the door, and to eventually become customers, right? If personality brand serves that function better than copy, then like the brand is going to be the focus.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, but here's where I think the opportunity is. I'm curious what you think of this. I think that because all these businesses have become less dependent on copy, because they are leaning into their brand, and because there's this culture in our space, like the scale bro culture, Hormozi's a lot of the scale bros have started to follow Hormozi these days, but it's the same kind of crowd that would follow Russell
Yeah,
with his
Russell Brunson,
ClickFunnels stuff. It's the same sort of crowd. It's kind of like they'll just go wherever the big numbers are for now. And then they'll all kind of write the same funnels and they write the same copy, and then the VSL funnel is hot, and then this funnel's hot, and then this funnel's hot, and then it's like, so because of that, if you're actually a good writer, you're actually good, and you put some serious direct response skill into a business, I think that's what gets these guys to the top. I think so. I mean, like I think of your client. I think of your client, the one you've been working with. You guys got that 100 million award. Obviously to say that there's a big team behind it, but I don't think that's possible without 9 out of 10 copy to get that level.
I agree. I think like the copy is the fuel and the amplifier to a brand that's already good, right? Because Jeremy actually, like, he tells a story, but like the first 2 years, his skill level in sales training is pretty much very similar from beginning to now, right? Because he's been doing sales for like 17 years. But in the first 2 years, like he actually lost the money on ads and on everything, right? On webinars, right? But he had so much saved up that he'd just lose a couple $100K on ads that year. And then he's like, and then when he got like the good marketing, good copy, a good team around him, that's when it took off, right? So he already had like the skills and sales training. He was already like guru level skills, but then it took the copy, it took the branding, it took like everything to get to the next level. But like, yeah, no, copy is like the amplifier.
So I think that's where copywriters make money now. It's like these businesses at, let's say, 2 million, 3 million per year, they ready to go, but they have 6 out of 10 copy, and they don't know it. And most of the writers don't even realize that their copy's a 6 out of 10 until they realize that they've been running the same mechanism, or they've been running the same VSL for 2 years, and the market's adjusted, and you just have to be a good writer to know that. It surprises me how few internet marketing businesses have the same funnel. I mean, have new funnels. Like, they don't build new funnels. It's weird. There's one client I used to work with. They ran the same funnel for 4 years, and it's now suddenly the market just doesn't respond to it, and they're hurting, and they're like, I don't understand what's going on. Other businesses, we talked with other businesses, they're also struggling right now. Maybe it's the market, it's the energy. I'm like, I don't think so. I think you saturate, like,
Yeah.
this is just a message that this market's no longer receptive to, and you're not investing in good copy, and you're not. And copy, by copy, I also mean like the marketing and just the whole process. You're not building new funnels and doing things differently.
Yeah, exactly. Like a bunch of especially like in coaching, like a bunch of people run like VSL book a call funnels, right? They've been running that for like years. And like the VSL book a call funnel, it targets the first 10% of I think, yeah, Alan talked about this in your interview. It's like there's 10% of people who buy now, 3%, 30% of people who buy like a bit later, maybe like 1 or 2 months. And there's another 30% buy later. And when you do like just one specific type of funnel, it's one specific buyer segment. You don't have a funnel to target the other warm segment, right? Which is, I think, probably what the AC funnel is about, which is like targeting the warm buyers and having nurturing them and ascending them towards the buyer journey. It's like, that's where a bunch of people are actually missing out opportunities. It's like, I think you got to understand, like for example, there's a client, or potential client I'm talking to, they've been running like book a call funnels for 2 years now, right? And they had like 1.5 or 1.7 months, but then now they're dropping down a bit to like 900K to like 1 million. And I'm like, that's typically, if you run the book a call funnel, that's usually what the curve is like a bell curve, right? Like you get to the peak, but eventually you tap out that segment and you need to build like another funnel to the same market, but different awareness level. It's like, I think understanding fundamental marketing principles like that, like the buyer's pyramid, that's part of copywriting. Like, it's not just the words, but it's understanding that you're talking to people, and people, there's a hierarchy and there's a structure to people. So
that's good. That's good. Yeah. I think it's very difficult actually these days. I mean, it's not doom and gloom, obviously.
No,
for copywriters, but it is difficult because, I mean, I learned from you learned from Steven learned from Dan, and I think that copywriters these days, if they want to get ahead, they got to have someone like that they're directly learning from. I think it's an apprenticeship skill. I just think I mean, you can read all these books,
or join a good school community. Like copy.
I mean, yeah. You're in there and you share some secrets too, but even more so than that, even like I do think, like, if you it's not about necessarily hiring a coach. It's like, get a copy chief, go work at an agency if you have to, then, because you got to do that. There was a guy I was coaching for a while, back in 2022, I think. We just had a month of coaching together, and he came to the call with copy to review. And I just read through the copy, and there was a lot of copy speak. It just felt like a lot of stitched copy from like all these different sources. Felt like John Carlton bullets, and then some crazy long, like headline, and then some like crossroad close, that it just all felt stitched. It didn't feel. It just felt weird.
Yeah.
And I was like critiquing him, and I know that that's what he was doing, and they were from different places. He told me that because I was critiquing, and he'd say, "Oh no, I did the bullets like this because I read this book that told me to do it this way." And I was like, okay. And then I like gave him feedback on his close, and I was like, why don't we do it this other way? He's like, well, I don't want to do it that way because the close that I used here is a proven close from this thing. And so I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, okay. So, I mean, I guess that's difficult to argue against, because you've told me where all the sources are, but I don't like the copy. It's boring. It's not converting. Like, it doesn't matter where it came from. I'm not, as a prospect, I'm feeling resistance to it. And yeah, I think he lost a client because they just didn't like the copy. So you can read the books, you can watch videos, you can use that stuff, but you just need someone to actually transfer the skill. I still believe that. What do you think?
That's how humanity has learned for like centuries and millennia, which is like through apprenticeships. And then we've lost that. So
Well, that's why I say it's like, as much as I say it's not doom and gloom, I do think it's a little bit difficult today because copywriting has become a biz op more than before. So a lot of people now, it's like if they want to learn, then they end up. I mean, there's always been copy coaching courses, but today there's so many more, and it's a lot of it's framed as this, like you said, like go to the beach, 1 hour
Yeah.
for a client 3K, and 1 hour for another client 3K. It's like it's difficult to get somebody to do a direct skill transfer when you have that kind of expectation, and the market wants that. Some of the greatest copywriters, they're not coaching anymore. They just don't do coaching anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That's tough. I never thought of it that way. Like because when we were getting into the industry, like I think copywriting coaching offers are relatively new, and people are still offering like more one-on-one support.
Yep.
But now everybody's kind of like moved on. They're like, off like one-on-one coaching is so exhausting. It's so mentally draining. It's like it's not doesn't make business sense. And yeah, I think like just exactly what you said. You can only get that level of training now if the business owner or the other person is incentivized to make you better, right? Which means like if you are better, their business becomes better. So yeah, I don't know. Is that what it's like for most like newer copywriters in your daughter? Like, are they finding it hard to like get skill acquisition, or are they finding it harder to get like clients or like agency clients they can stay longer with? Is that been the more common experience now as opposed to before?
For my clients in the dojo, most of them have been in the game for several years.
Right. They're probably different. Yeah.
So they're okay, because they've already got that initial momentum, and they're getting a lot of referral business and networking, and if they do apply for gigs, they usually have a lot of they know how to get that. There's a couple of newer people. We do take on a few newer clients in there, but most of them, they're actually doing okay because but like that same conversation with them, they would say like, oh, I don't know how it would be if I had started today. I'm happy I started in 2022, or I'm happy I started in 20. It's the same sort of thing. But the newer writers now, there are a few newer writers that I obviously do have touch points with. I don't really coach them too often, but I'll do talk to them, and then they'll say like, oh, and I'm struggling to get a client and to get the skill, and my go-to now is just like work in-house or work in an agency and just do what I did because I just worked really, really hard for Dan. I was up till 3 a.m. most nights not because Dan was asking too much work, but just because I was a slow writer, because I was new. So I would just work very, very late, no matter what. And I was tired, and I'd wake up the next morning at 8 a.m. and continue working. And I did that for a year. And I think in that 1 year, I learned probably 3-4 years worth of work. If I had been a freelancer, I probably would have taken 4 years to get the same amount of reps in, just because of the intensity and the direct feedback. And I think a lot of people don't realize that is that if you go and do the freelance game and you go play the freelance game, you are going to learn probably at half the speed.
Yeah.
And that's okay if you've already got, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5 big names under your belt. I mean, you've got like plenty of big names, but if you're a copywriter and you want to go freelance, it's a hard sell if you only have one big name and you've only worked with them 3 months. I think people like repeat winners. They like repeat winners. If they see you've worked with Tony Robbins and ClickFunnels and Hormozi, if it's 3, it's like, oh, well, this guy's really good. Versus if you just say like, oh, and I wrote one email for Mindvalley, I don't know, it doesn't have the same hit. So I tell a lot of the writers, before you go freelance, can you add 1 or 2 more big names to your belt, and then go freelance? Then it'll be easier to get bigger clients and better clients.
Yeah, completely agree. It's like, but that people don't like that because it actually takes work and time. Like it's not,
oh no,
right?
Damn it! I can't go to the beach and just chill.
Yeah, you gotta just chill, like because they don't look at it as a career, dude. Like when you look at it as a hobby instead of like an actual career or business you're building, then it's like you get the results, based on how you treat it. You treat it as a hobby results. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'd say for the new guys. I think like they just gotta get in a place where, like you said, the business owner's incentivized to make them better. And I think agencies today actually are probably a little bit nicer to deal with than agencies in 2020. I've had some pretty good experiences with agencies. I've had a lot of my private clients working in agencies now, and they say that, I mean, it's been pretty good. Also with AI, it makes it a little bit easier to handle like a lot of workload, whereas in the past you would get stretched pretty thin very quickly. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, I know we're running close to the hour here, but I'm curious on your perspective on how AI can be used by the big boys to make a crap ton more.
You got to learn AI 100%. It's like, I think it's tough, but there's definitely going to be a gap between people who don't use AI or don't know how to use AI and people who do know how to use AI in the future. And like that gap will be pretty damn big, right? Like,
yeah,
like me writing, okay, like there was this one author I really like this style of writing, Haruki Murakami, right? So what I would do is I wanted to emulate it. I hand copied him for like 35 days straight, right? Doing hand copy stuff. And I would just hand copy his books to get like more flow. I got some of it, right? And then when ChatGPT came out, I'm like, hey, can you write a paragraph in the style of Haruki Murakami? And in 2 seconds, it was better than anything else I've written in the past like 2 months that I was trying to emulate that style. So, so I'm like, okay, f it. I'm like, all that work I put into it, it's like within a few seconds, it's just, I don't know. Like the way AI is growing, like you got to learn how to use it. My opinion.
But I think that's actually the flip side to all of this. Like there are a lot of challenges in 2025, but I think now with AI and the right big businesses, because a lot of them are sleeping on good copy. I think 2025, 2026, 2027, I think you can make more as a copywriter than ever before. That's my belief. From what I'm seeing with my clients, I think you can make more than ever before. I think it's much more profitable than when we got started.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, it's crazy how much you can do. And then like clients don't necessarily care if you're using AI. In fact, they like it because it's usually like significant. Yeah, but it's significantly better too, right? Like sometimes I'll write a piece of copy and my clients would go back and forth with me on voice and say, oh, this isn't quite how I would say it. This isn't quite how I'd say it. Now I could take 30 of their top pieces of copy that they wrote themselves back in the beginning of their career and teach it AI. And then any email I write, I could say, hey, look at this email. And I want you to just rewrite this in the style of, let's say, Dan Martell. And I'm telling you, man, it's like 95% too exact. He'll read it and he'll think he wrote it himself.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So like that kind of thing just makes it so overpowered. It's so easy to crush it these days. From once you break through once you get that first big client, and you get that skill directly from someone like you, if you're their copy chief. So if you could get a client, if you find out what
copy chief program 997, you got an
so I think that's the secret is like where people must find you on LinkedIn or on Facebook, find out which client you're working with, and then apply to work there. And then if they get in as a junior or even like as a that's the real secret.
Exactly.
Then they can learn from you, right?
Yeah. Or just stalk me and Matthew and visit us in Paris, and then
that's
right. Like, hey, yeah, no,
yeah, that's good. So where can people find you? Do you hang out on Facebook these days?
Facebook, yeah, just find me on Facebook, Peter Liu, and then or Instagram, Peter_LUU on Instagram. I'm private, but if you add me and like it's from Matthew, then like because Matthew's cool. I'll assume you're cool and not creepy too.
I'll go easier on you in chess next time because you said
that.
Yeah,
please, bro.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, that's kind of you, man. Yeah, thank you so much for this chat. I really appreciate it. I thought it was really interesting. A lot of different perspectives. Yeah, it was.
We'll do it again sometime. We'll do like an IRL.
I think so. Yeah, I think we should. I think people will
we'll do it while playing chess. Like it'll be like
that would be cool.
That would be cool. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Idea.
Yeah.
Well, actually playing chess, not just pretending to
actually
play chess.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, we could talk about that, and I think one of the things that a lot of copywriters will like is personal brand, because I think personal brand, like the way that you build a personal brand, is not just copy. There's so much more to it. So that'll be a part 2. But thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate your time,
dude. Love you. And appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I'll see you again soon. I'll see you in Paris. Take care.